calling all forward-thinking estheticians. It's time to redefine the art of skincare and embrace a revolutionary approach that begins with your client's skin cell health. I'm pharmacist Ben Fuchs, welcoming you to Truth Treatment Systems, where beauty begins at the cell. We believe you're not just a beauty professional, you are a healthcare professional. You want to make a positive difference and you want to make a good living, and we will help you do both. We're here to support your out-of-the-box thinking and empower you to question traditional products, outdated formulations, and old-school ingredients. Imagine a world where solutions to the skin's enigmatic conditions lie just beyond the horizon. At Truth, we're not just a skincare brand, we're a movement that encourages you to explore better solutions and find that aha moment that changes the game. You are an artist and a healer of the skin, and we're here to provide the canvas and the tools for you to create tailored protocols, leaving generic ones in the past. Sign up now at truthtreatmentspro.com and receive 2 complimentary mineral-rich electrolyte sheet masks. That's truthtreatmentspro.com, where healthy skin is beautiful skin.
This podcast is sponsored by LAMPROBE. LAMPROBE is a popular aesthetic tool that enables skincare practitioners to rapidly treat a wide variety of common minor skin irregularities, or MSI. Red MSI treated by LAMPROBE include dilated capillaries and cherry angiomas, yellow MSI, cholesterol deposits and sebaceous hyperplasia, and brown MSI treated include skin tags and more. LAMPROBE MSI treatments are non-invasive and deliver immediate results. LAMPROBE can empower your skin practice with these new and highly in-demand services. For more information, visit lamprobe.com. That's LAMPROBE.com. And follow LAMPROBE on social media at LAMPROBE.
Hello and welcome to ASCP and the Rogue Pharmacist with Ben Fuchs. In each episode, we will explore how internal and external factors can impact the skin. I'm Maggie Stasek, ASCP's Education Program Manager, and joining me is Ben Fuchs, skincare formulator and pharmacist. Hey, Ben.
Hello, Maggie.
Let's talk about vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin.
Ooh.
Everyone knows it is well known for strong bones, but would you say it's just as essential for maintaining healthy skin?
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Vitamin D is awesome stuff. Vitamin D is actually, like vitamin A, not really a vitamin.
Oh.
It's called a vitamin, but it's kind of a misnomer because it's a hormone.
Interesting.
And that makes it much more powerful than an ordinary vitamin. Vitamins help chemistry happen. Hormones make chemistry happen. So the word hormone actually means in Greek, I think, Greek or Latin, Greek, I'm pretty sure, I arouse to activity. It makes things happen. Hormones are the biochemicals in the body that initiate all activity, hormones. And all cells have little spaces called receptors that bind to hormones. And this is what makes vitamin D and vitamin A singular in the world of vitamins. There are vitamin A receptors and vitamin D receptors on cells. So like with all hormones, the hormone, which is called a ligand, technically ligand like ligament is something that connects. So the ligand or the hormone sits in the receptor, initiates chemical reactions. With vitamin D and vitamin A, those chemical reactions within a cell actually make it to the genes, which makes vitamin D and vitamin A together. And they do work together. You've heard of vitamin D and A and D ointment probably. They do work together. That makes them both epigenetic factors. We just talked about epigenetics. Vitamin D and vitamin A are both quintessential epigenetic factors. They turn on genes. Vitamin D is a little bit confusing for people because it is a hormone, but it is very possibly the most fundamental molecule in the body for initiating activity. Pretty much all activity in a cell involves activation by vitamin D. Vitamin D is a form of cholesterol. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know.
It's actually you can think of it as a type of cholesterol. It's a little tweaked, and it's made in the skin. That's why they call it the sunshine vitamins. The sun hits cholesterol, and then the cholesterol gets tweaked a little bit, and then that becomes vitamin D. Vitamin D can also be taken as supplements and foods, but the best vitamin D comes from the skin. Why? Because vitamin D has to be activated. When you take it orally, it has to be activated. And the body's very wise in this way. Because vitamin D is so powerful, you can't just put vitamin D into the system and get a vitamin D effect because it's almost like a drug. So the body has got these fail-safes, these safety measures for making sure that there's not too much vitamin D activity. And these safety measures involve activation of the vitamin D in both the liver and the kidney. So you take vitamin D orally, or you get your vitamin D in foods, and then it goes into the bloodstream, and then it has to be turned on into active vitamin D by chemical reactions that occur in the liver and the kidney. Now, if you have fatty liver disease, if your liver's not working as well as it should, you have kidney disease, that might not happen. So if you're dealing, and 1/3 of Americans have fatty liver disease, and I don't know, 20% or maybe more of Americans have kidney disease, you may be taking your vitamin D orally, but not activating it and not getting the vitamin D benefits. The skin makes a special kind of vitamin D in the sense that it doesn't really make a special kind of vitamin D, but the skin keratinocytes specifically have the ability to activate vitamin D. The entire vitamin D pathway of activation of getting the vitamin D in the system and then activating it can occur in the skin. So you can activate vitamin D that's made by the sun, by the reaction between the sun and the skin in the skin. And that makes it a more superior form of vitamin D because you don't have to go through the body doesn't have to go through the whole liver and kidney activation. This is especially important for people who are dealing with kidney or liver problems. So vitamin D, and this is something that the medical model doesn't really recognize because they'll say, you don't have to worry about vitamin D in the skin, getting your sunshine to get vitamin D. You can get it from foods and supplements, but they're not taking into account that it has to be activated, and not everybody's activating it, especially if they have kidney or liver problems. Diabetics especially, or people who suffer from what's called metabolic syndrome, which is a kind of blood sugar related issue, they're especially prone towards vitamin D deficiency. So you want vitamin D, in my opinion, you want to contact the sun. I always get into a lot of controversy when I talk about this, but you want sun exposure. And it turns out that the sun exposure that's responsible for the production of vitamin D is ultraviolet B, UVB, which is the burning ray. So you have to expose your skin to UVB in order to make vitamin D. Even though most of the sun's rays are UVA, you have to make sure that you're getting the UVB in order to make vitamin D. We all know that sunscreens specifically block UVB. I don't know if I've seen any literature that says this specifically, but it makes sense that if you're blocking UVB with a sunscreen, you're going to miss out on activation of the cholesterol molecule into vitamin D. You're going to be missing out on skin vitamin D. And if you're thinking, I get it from food or supplements, that may not occur. You may not be getting the vitamin D benefits that you need. So you really want to expose your skin to UVB for a little bit every day in order to make sure that you're producing this very deluxe form of vitamin D that the skin can activate. The best UVB, by the way, is between the hours of 10 and 12 in the summertime, which is the strongest sun rays. And you don't want to burn. Nobody's saying to burn, but you do want to get some UVB exposure. And depending on your skin type, if you're fair like you are, if you're, have darker skin, you got to kind of get more sun if you're darker, basically. Because vitamin D is kind of an activating thing, hormone or vitamin. It makes things happen. The intestine, the immune system, the skin, these are all parts of the body that are much more dependent or are very dependent on vitamin D because there's a lot of activity that's going on in those areas. Vitamin D also has an interesting antimicrobial effect on the skin. So it can help control microbial infestations, bacterial infestations, and that kind of thing. So in addition to having an effect on keratinocytes, it also activates antimicrobial peptides in the skin, and its general upregulating effect on cells can be used to treat male pattern baldness. So that's another benefit. It's an upregulating kind of vitamin. And when you think about it, from an evolutionary perspective, when would we have gotten the most vitamin D? In the summertime. And in the summertime, that's when things grow. That's when we get we have the most from an evolutionary perspective. That's when we would have gotten the most calories, the most nutrition. The body was primed to grow in the summertime. So vitamin D is a growth substance that makes things happen, but it doesn't make things happen willy-nilly. It stabilizes things. There's a process which I know you've heard of, and most skincare professionals have heard of, called differentiation. And that's the maturation process of a cell. Vitamin D controls differentiation. And whenever cells are growing too fast, vitamin D, and also, by the way, vitamin A, because they work very similarly, can stabilize the growth of those skin cells. And if they're not growing fast enough, it can turn them on. And there are many skin diseases that are caused by cells growing too fast, such as psoriasis. Psoriasis is caused by cells piling up on the skin surface. And guess what? Vitamin D is considered the pharmacological treatment of choice, or one of the pharmacological treatments of choice for psoriasis. But that same kind of hyperproliferation that occurs on psoriatic skin also occurs in acne skin. except it occurs inside a follicle. Keratinocytes are dividing very rapidly inside a follicle. And again, vitamin D may have benefits for helping treat acne, along with vitamin A. And wherever vitamin A is going to be beneficial for the skin, vitamin D will likely have benefits as well, because like I say, they work together. Also for carcinogenesis, for cancer, vitamin D can help stabilize the growth of cells to prevent cancer. So vitamin D has anti-cancer properties in this regard. So it's got some wonderful, wonderful benefits for the skin when it's applied topically. Also, by inducing its production in the skin via ultraviolet exposure. Supplemental vitamin D is a little bit trickier. There are foods now that are fortified with vitamin D, but nothing beats sunshine-derived vitamin D.
You see supplements that say D3.
Yeah.
Is that the same or how's that different?
From D2?
I don't know.
D3
What's D2?
D3 is the real stuff. Vitamin D3 is the real stuff. There is a form of vitamins. Vitamin D is only found in animals. So if you're trying to get food, it's an animal vitamin. If you're trying to get vitamin D from foods, you're going to be restricted to animal foods with one exception, and that's mushrooms.
We've talked about vitamin D, like it's stabilizing growth of tissue, essentially good for acne. What about vitamin D reversing aging?
Well, in the sense that aging is a slowdown of cell growth, yeah, vitamin D can have some anti-aging benefits, and it certainly has protective benefits. So a lot of it's anti-inflammatory. So a lot of the effects of aging are associated with inflammation. In that sense, it could have anti-aging effects. It is epigenetic, so it turns on genes that can have anti-aging effects. And also, interestingly, vitamin D is protective against cell damage from the sun. So vitamin D can also protect the skin from sun aging, from sun-induced aging, from photoaging, which is kind of interesting because people, when you think about it, because people stay out of the sun to protect their skin from the sun, it may be that going out in the sun actually protects your skin from the sun via this vitamin D connection. So vitamin D does have anti-aging effects in the sense that it's epigenetic, that it's an epigenetic factor, that it's anti-inflammatory, and that it also can protect your skin from photo damage.
So you mentioned that vitamin A and vitamin D, they work together.
Yes.
How is that?
Both are epigenetic factors that turn on genes, that upregulate genes, and both are involved in stabilizing differentiation. So for psoriasis, we find that vitamin D works for treating psoriasis. So does vitamin A. We find that vitamin A works for treating acne. So does vitamin D. So
they're just good partners.
They're good partners because they both are epigenetic factors that are they're called vitamins, but they're actually hormones. And vitamin D, by the way, I should mention, also has some stabilizing effect on melanocytes and may help with hyperpigmentation too.
So is vitamin D ever used topically?
Yes, heck yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Vitamin D is vitamin D, straight vitamin D is not really, I use it in my skincare products all the time because I just love, all my formulations use vitamins. In fact, that's my whole story,
right,
is epigenetics and vitamins in topical skincare. And I believe that if you're not using topical vitamins and topical epigenetic nutrients, if you will, in your skincare products, you're completely missing a golden opportunity to make things happen on the skin. And that's why all my treatments feature nutrients. That being said, there's not a lot of skincare products that have vitamin D in them, but there is a prescription drug that has vitamin D in it called Dovanex, and it's a pharmaceutical version of vitamin D. It's not really vitamin D. It's an analog, and that's used for psoriasis. But you don't really see vitamin D yet. You probably will in the future because it does have some wonderful effects, and it's fat soluble. It does get through the stratum corneum when you apply it topically. I think it's a really underappreciated vitamin or skincare ingredient for anti-aging and for overall skin health, and I use it in a lot of my products.
If you're low in vitamin D, what is that going to look like?
It's going to look like immune problems, skin problems, psoriasis, bone issues. One of vitamin D's main roles, arguably it is the main role for vitamin D, is to improve calcium absorption through the intestine. So calcium, while people think of it as important for bones, which it is in the skeletal tissue, it's also a critical on switch or on activator. And this is one of the ways that vitamin D achieves its upregulating effects in addition to its epigenetics, is it improves the absorption of calcium into cells as well as into the bloodstream. So it supports growth and activity. Again, it's a summertime vitamin, a summertime nutrient, and it's associated with sun exposure. So it makes sense that from an evolutionary perspective, it would be involved in making things happen, if you will. And not just helping things happen like ordinary vitamins do, like the B vitamins, for example, but in making things happen. So that's why it's so important to have it activated in the liver and the kidneys, because you don't want to make things happen too much. I don't know why vitamin D is not really recognized or used as much as I think it deserves much more attention. Vitamin D deficiency disease is called rickets. Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and rickets is a bone issue. It involves softening of the bones, weakness of the bones, and that has to do with vitamin D's ability to support calcium absorption. So for people who want to have strong skeletal tissue, that's another reason to use vitamin D supplements or to make sure you're getting sun exposure. And the fact that it helps support the strength of the bones also lends one to believe that all connective tissue, it'll improve the strength of all connective tissue, including connective tissue in the skin, which would make it important for anti-aging and for wrinkles and thinning skin.
That makes sense. And if you are taking a calcium supplement, you should also be taking the vitamin D supplement, right?
Yeah, or getting in the sun, somehow improving the ability of vitamin D to be absorbed. And that's why every once in a while you'll hear people say that calcium supplements are problematic, that it can increase the risk of stones. And whether or not that's the case, I don't know. But the reasoning is that just because you take calcium doesn't mean it's going to get absorbed into the intestine or into the cell. And that's why vitamin D is so important. And if you're vitamin D deficient, that may not occur.
That concludes our show for today, and we thank you for listening. But if you just can't get enough of Ben Fuchs, ASCP's Rogue Pharmacist, you can find him at truthtreatments.com. For more information on this episode or for ways to connect with Ben Fuchs or to learn more about ASCP, check out the show notes.